Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. We're going to be covering Baruuk Prime and a couple of builds. Got one that's a pretty good meme for those of you that just want a casual experience. But let's do the proper Baruuk build first. Baruuk is a Fortuna frame, um, and honestly, this is the most accessible he's ever been because well, he's been hidden behind world bosses. Actually, we're gonna leave. I'm already glitched. This frame is very buggy. I'm gonna leave the simulacrum and come back in. So let's go over a basic build with him. Alright, all better. We are going to be going for shield gating. So the idea of surviving on your 3 for damage reduction, we're not really going to be exploiting that with a proper build. So let's go over his abilities really quick. Normally I wouldn't do this, but just because of the fact that this is a frame that's hidden behind basically what's a DPS and build check, it seems worthy to actually go over it. Alright, so the first ability is Elude. Basically, you create what I can only describe as like a warble around you. It shows it, but when you look at it, it's basically a dodge ability. Based on range. The more range you have, it'll go up to 360 degrees. It starts out at 180. You can see our drain per second. This does cost you energy to maintain, and it can get pretty oppressive depending on how much you dump stat things. But ideally, with the range, I think it's 200% to get a full 360 because it starts at 180. We will not be getting 360 degrees because this ability stops working when you're attacking. So we will not be using this as our survivability mechanic, though it is pretty interesting in how you can abuse this. The next one is Lull. Creates a amnesia-like effect in a scalable radius. I have 145% range for a 36-meter radius. Unironically, you actually want a dump stat duration, ideally, with this. Because it causes the enemies to go to sleep. When you hit them, it wakes them up, but it causes them to lose their alert level. So if you're doing like an affinity farm or something like that, even though Banshee Silence on Equinox is kind of meta for speed leveling, you can use this as like an alternative for stuff in a large AoE. Again, I have 36.25 meter range with 145, so you can get this to the point where it's practically a tile set. The sleep duration is how long they go to sleep, and the 0.63 is more or less our limiting cast time. And I'll show the effect when we use it. The third one is Desolate Hands. Summon a bevy of orbiting daggers. This is, besides his 4, this is the most well-seen ability on Baruuk in terms of, like, say somebody's fashion framed him really well and he's not really recognizable anymore. This is always going to be something where if you see the daggers running around a frame, you're immediately going to know Baruuk is on there. Obviously, his 4th is bread and butter, right? Very expensive ability to cast. Even with slightly more efficiency, it's 105% on the first build. So 71.25 is what we're dealing with, but this ability is 75. It is a strength-based ability, not duration. It does scale with range, but ideally you don't want to go too nuts with it. So 75 drain at 100% efficiency. The radius is pretty decent. The number of charges does scale with the amount of strength that you have. And what these little arrows do is they fly out and they get rid of an enemy's guns, like a disarm. Causes a small bit of damage. It's not really that much. At lower levels, this will kill. And I mean like really low levels. But at higher levels, this is more about two things. The damage reduction is handy. It's a free adaptation. And the disarm. So this is super useful. Especially the disarm. Damage reduction, not so much. It becomes nothing at higher levels. And the fourth one, the most like quintessential Baruuk ability, is the waves that come out of his palm. He has an exalted weapon, which we're going to be talking about modding for. And it's a big ass triangle that comes out of his palm. He has a very interesting stance. It's very dynamic. The standing auto, so when you're just mashing E, is a push. The block E combo is a pull. The forward block auto combo is a lift. He has a very nasty heavy attack with this. And the slide attack is also a lift. And it does hella damage. You also gain an additional 40% damage reduction. And if you can see, we have reactive storm. And I'll explain that in a bit. So, and the passive. Each projectile dodged, each enemy lulled or disarmed erodes Baruuk's restraint and fuels the storm within. As Baruuk restraint is diminished, he becomes up to 50% more resistant to damage. This is like a half adaptation at max restraint. And with the build I'm going to show you, it's going to be pretty damn easy to keep that up. Because it's not that hard to keep up. So we're just going to go over the bread and butter, easy, more importantly, non-umbral Baruuk build. So the strength is going to be a little bit lower, but this is incredibly functional. It's also a little bit more fast-paced. You're going to be able to keep your abilities up for forever. But we did, like normal, like the meta builds, dump stat duration on this build. So the logic behind this is to just make his abilities more castable and to be able to keep the 4 up as easy as possible. Because realistically, Baruuk doesn't really need that much to get going, but good lord does he benefit from some forma. So there are a couple of important numbers. What do we got? Okay, so here's an unmodded Baruuk. There are a couple of important numbers to think about. One of the important ones is the damage reduction on his 3. It scales with the number of charges, and frankly, he just doesn't need that much. Let's see, what do we got? 25. Okay, so without an even upgraded all the way intensify, we're able to get the damage reduction. So at 10 charges, which is the important number, we get maximum damage reduction. And this also scales, not additively, but multiplicatively with the damage reduction on Serene Storm and the damage reduction from his restraint meter. So making sure to hit 90 is just smart science. Okay? So that's one of his important numbers to hit. On Serene Storm, which is the augment that we're going to be using. Actually, let me just get on the list. Okay. Strength does not benefit elude in any way. Let's do range and cunning drift. It should be 200 exactly. Alright, good enough. It's 200% range for a 360 degree dodge chance from projectiles. This does not affect melee. So this would be an important number to consider when building your Baruuk. But all you need is 200%, so just keep that in mind. You can do like an overextend and a cunning drift in the Exilis. Though keep in mind, I do have a bunch of forma on this. But one is an aura forma, and the other one is changing the Exilis over from a Naramon to a Vazarin polarity. So that's two of them. If you can get away with using the aura, which is a Naramon polarity, and you like the same polarity in the Exilis, you can get away with a lot less. But I like aura forma on the primes. So you could drop this here for a slight hit, and you can get it back somewhere else in the build. But let's go ahead and build up a Baruuk. This is going to be a 4 build. The Endless Lullaby. This was more effective before Eximus. And this was a range build where you would do like a range duration build. But it leaves you feeling kind of squishy. So I'm not a fan of it. And I haven't seen too many good endgame builds. And by endgame, I mean level cap. Where you are reliant on this. Because things like Nullifier Bubbles and Eximus exist. And this makes you kind of reliant on being able to CC stuff to survive. And everything just being constantly asleep. So, 4 build it is. Now, this gives us 250% status chance. It is scaling off of base. And the number that we need to hit... Where are we at? Ideally, is we want to be proccing at a minimum 100% status on this. So let's increase our strength. Well, let me see exactly what we got here. We'll do the math. All right, so we're gonna need a bit of power strength. The buff for the augment needs to be 566% in order to hit 100% status chance. But the good news is that it gives us half. So this scales actually pretty easily. So we're at 250. Let's see where Blind Rage gets us. 497. Transient Fortitude is 635. Okay, so we're over. Let's just double check. 110% status, good enough. We could knock it down a little bit. And actually, for now, let's go ahead and do that. And that should still keep us over 100%. And we'll modify the build as we go. We'll build it the first time. Okay, 100.9. Cool. So the reason why we're equipping Blind Rage is when you look at his abilities, they're duration based and they have charges. So the way you make a Warframe stronger ability wise is increased strength, increased range, and increased duration, and then you figure out a way to deal with the efficiency dump. If you are trying to maximize the damage that your Warframe itself does. Range, strength, and duration are the 3 stats that can affect your abilities. Efficiency and how much something costs is merely a problem to be solved. So, with this, we're going to try out no range, strength, and we're going to add in some mods. And there'll be a reason later, but just out of pure preference, we're going to throw on Brief Respite. And if you don't have Prime Sure-Footed, Handspring. Almost just as good. Really, there is not much of a difference. And more importantly, it would match the polarity of this. And depending on how the upcoming change to causing self damage, to be honest, I might swap over to handspring. But anyways, so this is personal preference. One, because I have prime sure-footed and it's a hassle otherwise. But handspring is a very, very, very close second. And more importantly, it matches the polarity that's already there. So this would match, and it would be, what, 4 drain, where this would be 8, and it would save you some capacity, right? So we're over 200% going back to the build. Now let's get some quality of life mods in. So we're going to do prime flow because we like doing level caps. Rolling guard is really hard to replace. On our arcane slot, the first one, we're going to put energize. Because energize is a default arcane because it is so useful. I need a reason to not run this because of its utility. Okay. So if you have arcane energize and you're doing a build yourself, arcane energize is the default arcane to put on just because it gives you so much energy. You need a reason to take it off, provided the build can provide enough efficiency or duration where you don't need energize, then you can take it off. But if you have energize, you're always running this. Okay, so we've hit our one important number, which gives us 100% status chance on our 4 build, which is a big deal. There is a big DPS increase in guaranteeing a status chance each time you hit something. So at a minimum, we've done that. We've got our augment, we've got rolling guard, and we've got flow. So out of the build where we had 10 mod slots, we really only have 3. So let's try to figure out what we got. So let's look at the rest of our stats. We have a nice chunky energy pool though. So let's try to attack this first because on Baruuk, even though he has a ton of built-in damage reduction, the fact is at level cap, you just die. I've tried a couple, and the math works out that if you apply every damage reduction possible to Baruuk, you can get a level cap exo, which is a weaker instance of damage, down to the point where it takes about 30% of your health. But the enemy's using a Carrick Wraith. Yeah, an Exo Gokstad officer, which doesn't exist at level cap, but is a good representation and a good thing to test on. With all of the damage reduction, we'll still be hitting you for about 200 health. And it's a full auto weapon. Okay? You're gonna die. So the damage reduction needs to be viewed, in my mind, as sort of a nice benefit. Okay? So let's continue filling out the build. We want to use Brief Respite. Looking at our energy drains so far, 1, we're going to leave on, and we're going to build to be able to leave it on. Because at an absolute minimum, one of the things, because this is going to be a more melee-focused build, is this is going to allow us to walk up to enemies, like say you have like 10 enemies grouped together and then there's another pack like 30 meters away. This is going to allow us to walk up to the enemy and not worry about a gap closer. So pretty nice, right? But its cost is 3.88 energy per second, which to be honest is completely doable. Out of personal preference, I use equilibrium quite a bit. That's a me thing. Okay? But more importantly, because I've combined it with the synth set on the Panzer, this energy drain per second basically gets nullified. You don't have to care about it. The synth set on its own can almost do 8 energy per second on its own without Zenuric, right? And Zenuric doesn't work on this frame because he has 2 drain abilities, or he has 1 drain ability. This one is like a toggle, right? It's not an energy drain though. So this is personal preference, but this only leaves us with 2 mods. Okay, everything else is conditional and up to personal preference at this point. So one of the things I like to take advantage of is the disarm, right? The radius on the disarm, or for the arrows to hit something, is super small. So personally, I'm going to run stretch. And this is the build that I have over here. Stretch is right here to bring us to 245 or 145. So the disarm will be in a bigger radius because when the 4 is up, the range of this doubles. Or when the 1 is up, the range of this doubles. Combined with elude to double the range. Not a big deal, because 16 meters is a much bigger deal. You don't need a ton, though you could buff this to where it's like able to like clear a room. There's only so many charges you can put on here. But if you notice, looking at these abilities, the 1 does not have a resource cost that is associated with this. It comes from the restraint meter. The 3 is a single cast with no drain. Now it's a heavy cast. 116 is a chunky ability. Lull has duration but is not a channel. And elude does have a drain per second. And a range around you. Like it won't trigger stuff and like it won't protect you against stuff behind you. So we need to figure out what we want. We can't go below this power strength. So we can't use, like, say, overextend here to max out our range and maybe get more. So we have 2 real things that we need to worry about. Normally, on a normal build, with no Archon shards, because this is a Baruuk Prime in 2022. So we've got shards. You would want to put something like natural talent here. Honestly, you would want to put natural talent here. Stretch would also be considered a flex slot. A lot of people, myself included, like the little bit of range, but you would never go like full range. But you could also not run it at all and dump stat range. That is a viable build. But this is personal preference, obviously, and I'm trying to explain the logic. So we have a little bit of range. Natural talent belongs on Baruuk, especially if you're trying to shield gate. I have equipped 2 yellow shards on Baruuk to give me the 50% casting speed, so this is gone. So out of the 3 stats that increase damage, we've hit our minimum, right, to get the 100%, so we're at 100.9 or whatever it was. What I've chosen to do is further dump stat duration. Make the abilities cheap. The abilities are very expensive to begin with, so just the 3, which is something we're going to be recasting a lot, I want to take care of the cost of this. So for me, what I've done is done this, brings the cost down to 71. That's not making it super cheap, but more importantly, it guarantees the shield gate. You can go a little bit cheaper, but not a lot. Because, what is it? If you need 95 divided by 1.5, we would need 64 energy. So our floor for this is 64, which is important because that means we can't use Streamline. Because we'll lose our shield gate, and we're damn sure lose our shield gate from lull. So by process of elimination, in order to deal with the energy drain, we now have to equip Equilibrium. Okay? So what was before a personal preference mod, in order to guarantee the spamability, we are going to have to use R3 with no other mods considered to shield gate. So fleeting expertise by process of elimination goes on here. Right? Because I can't do Streamline, and I don't care about duration. And the drain per second doesn't really hurt on elude. It's still completely manageable, though, admittedly, it does put a pace that you have to be killing at. So you're not going to be a bulldozer, but you can't be standing still. And even then, to help mitigate that, we've got a monster energy pool, 850. That's just with Prime Flow, no Archon mods. So, by process of elimination, we have our build. Is there any way we can improve it? Well, more range. It would require taking away from something. We can't get rid of Rolling Guard because we need that for higher level content. Blind Rage and Intensify are guaranteeing the 100% status chance on the 4. Reactive Storm is what is allowing us to deal as much damage as we are by applying statuses, and more importantly, changing the damage type of our 4 to match the weakness of the enemy. So this is required. Flow, pretty required, though technically if you run like 1 or 2 blue energy Archon shards, this is technically a flex slot nowadays. But I like the spam ability, so for me, I'm leaving it on. But if you have blue shards, technically Primed Flow is a flex slot nowadays, which is wild to say. And you could get away with the energy regen from Equilibrium with maybe like 150 more energy in the energy pool, right? So this mod, for now, because I'm not running energy, is kind of required, though technically it is a flex slot. Equilibrium is allowing us to keep energy up, and because of the synth set on the Panzer, which we will be using, fleeting expertise, keeping things cheap, with essentially no downside. And stretch helps us disarm from a greater range, because we are going to permanently have a loot up. So our range is going to be, what was that, 8.7 times 2? 17.4. I had a brain fart. So this, and we're going to have enough charges to keep through a couple, because one of the other things, okay, one more small mechanic. Desolate Hands, if you notice, at 10 charges, we had 90% damage reduction. The benefit of Overstrength is that I now get 18 free charges, and I still keep the damage reduction. Okay? So going up in strength, because that's what scales the number of charges, is actually beneficial. Well, Blind Rage, we have 2 strength mods on here. Blind Rage you can't really improve. The negative's been dealt with. So the only other strength mod that we have on here is Intensify. So we're going to search, almost said Google. And we're going to see what else we have to equip here. We have Transient Fortitude. We have Umbral Intensify. Energy Conversion is pretty solid. Especially for energy orbs. More modified mods that are like partial ranks. Power Drift's a downgrade. Augur Secrets is a downgrade. So what else do we really have? Baruuk doesn't have a heal. So Archon Intensify's bonus doesn't help us. Umbral Intensify is definitely a good option. But there's also a reason why I have the V polarity here. Because we're not doing an Umbral build. So the utility of Umbral Intensify is a cost based on the set. You get the more benefit out of this mod the more Umbral mods you equip. And we're only going to be doing 1. Now, yeah, we wouldn't be able to equip it. Easy enough. So the only other mod by process of elimination, because we're not doing an Umbral build, is literally Transient Fortitude. And the reason being is that our drain per second doesn't really get affected too much. It's 4.38 with the new duration. Lull is significantly quicker, which is unironically actually a benefit. Duration doesn't affect 3, and it doesn't affect the 4. So the only ability that it really could hurt would be the drain on the 1. But because we have as much efficiency as we do, it doesn't hurt it at all. It doesn't even change it. 4.38, 4.38, so it goes right back on. And the only other ability that's affected by duration negatively, it actually helps. So this is kind of the build, give or take. There are some changes you can do where if you want to do a health tank, for sure viable, and I've got a build for that. But our set, by process of elimination, is kind of set. We have two mods that are flex slots, and flow is only a flex because we're running the synth set with equilibrium. Fleeting is ultra helpful because negative duration, like a really, really low duration, actually helps us because we're not using Endless Lullaby, because Eximus exists. So that leaves us with one arcane that we need to figure out. Because we're doing a 4 build and it is a melee, we would literally just go here, search by melee, and we want to stay in our 4 as long as possible. And this basically leaves us with a 50-50 and it's personal preference. You have Arcane Blade Charger, which gives you 300% melee damage for 12 seconds on a primary weapon kill. We are not going to be swapping. If you are regularly swapping back and forth between primary and melee, this is an option, but it also forces a play style in order to trigger. Honestly, I'm not too big of a fan of these. The duration feels a little low. But if you're running like a dexterity build, like for like your primer on like your secondary, and like a dexterity build on your primary, and you're killing with your melee, and you want to use your primary and secondary as melees, or maybe like a grouping like the Proboscis Cernos, use that as your primary, and it's a dex build, like a dex arcane, and then you want to use like a dex arcane on your primer. Arcane Blade Charger is definitely really strong, and it's significantly stronger than Prime Pressure Point. So this is actually a solid option, but you have to have the playstyle where you're swapping weapons a lot, because you have to be able to get a kill with your primary. So for those of you that enjoy the playstyle, there is gains to be had. Arcane Bodyguard, it's to help out companions. Ours is immortal because we're using the Panzer, so we don't use this. Arcane Fury, on critical hit, 60% chance for 180 melee damage to melee weapons. This is part of our 50-50. This is a completely viable arcane to have on Baruuk. And not only that, because through process of elimination again, we cannot run condition overload effectively on Baruuk's 4. This is actually a viable mod, or a viable arcane. And it will more than double your damage. Because Prime Pressure Point, remember, is 165. So this will more than double your 4 damage. So, for your consideration. Arcane Primary Charger, on melee kill, 30% chance for... It's the opposite of Blade Charger, but on melee kill, 30% chance for 300% primary weapon damage for 12 seconds. I don't care about the primary, I'm trying to kill with a 4, so this gets eliminated. Now here's the other option. On hit, 15% chance for 60% attack speed to melee weapons for 18 seconds. This is the other one, and this is actually the one that I chose. Reason being is because the reactive storm augment benefits greatly because it is a status bonus, and we are over status by like I think 20% or something, or maybe 10%. Multiple hits allows you to apply more statuses, and because we are actually going to be going for a dot build on our 4, more chances to apply dots increases your damage proportionally. If you run Arcane Fury, you're going for 1 or 2 hitting everything. Especially in Steel Path, that's completely viable. But you need the dots to hurt more. So you would either use Arcane Strike and Arcane Fury together, which is actually viable. or you would go with Arcane Strike. That being said, if you don't have Arcane Strike and you have Arcane Fury, take Arcane Fury. There's nothing wrong with it. But because Reactive Storm benefits so much from applying dots faster, I went with Arcane Strike. Because if I'm applying corrosive stacks or viral stacks due to Reactive Storm, I want more of those. Like, and more particularly, I want 2 hits on the enemy. Because the first time doesn't benefit you. The second time, when you hit something and it has the viral damage on it, that's when you get the big damage boost. So the faster that happens, the faster my kill rate goes up. Because you essentially have to 1-tap or 2-tap everything. So there you go. Because you're applying, your damage type is changing, which is why running Fury doesn't hurt. But if you can hit something that doesn't have armor with a viral damage hit on the 4, the wave, apply viral and then hit it again, you get the damage boost from viral on a unarmored enemy, but then you also get the damage bonus from having a stack of viral the next time you hit. So you'll hit for something insane, and then you'll hit him again for double damage, which almost guarantees a 2-tap against anything. So for me, Arcane Strike was more beneficial because of the DPS window. And not only that, I am running Arcane Strike, plus I am running double attack speed on his 4. So for me personally, it is a play style preference. If you like the one bang that Fury gives you, by all means, pick it, but just know it is a playstyle preference, and you would have to sort of mod into it a little bit. And I'll talk about it when modding the weapon. So this is the setup. By process of elimination, we have a very close setup. We have shield gating. Shield gating is intact. And not only that, but we're also running 2 auger mods on the pistol to help with the shield gate even more, because more importantly, it's going to allow us to shield gate with lull. So we're not going to have to eat the 71 energy drain on the 3 every single time. So if we're looking for a shield gate, it will give us the option of lull, barely. And I can show you that here. So 94 times 2. So the number we're looking for is 188. So it's 94. We need to give ourselves a full bar of shield plus 1. So the number that we were looking for was 189. We are clearly over at 203. So lull on its own will give us shield gate, which is good because if you notice, hold on, let me reset. Actually, I don't need to reset. Hold on. Because if you notice, I'm going to press it and look at the shield gate and maybe like rewind the video 10 seconds. But notice when the shield gate hits, when the shield gets added. The shield gets added before the animation begins. So if you cast this, you're going to have shield gate through the entire animation. So it's a great panic switch. Because as soon as you press 2, boom, the shield hits. You can roll into a 3, get some more. Obviously, that's less because we already had overs. But, like, say you're in the air and you're rolling, you can cast the 2 and get shields at, like, 0 seconds. I think technically there is a slight delay, but it's so small, it doesn't even matter. So the 2 is the go-to for shield gating. And lull, it's definitely going to help you. Obviously, it's not going to do crap for Eximus. But it's just if you need a panic switch, you also have rolling guard as well. Right? And that should help you deal with Eximus. So, okay, so this is our build. We have Prime Flow as a flex slot because Archon shards are a thing. Stretch is to taste. This is technically a flex slot also. But the bottom row is kind of required. Fleeting Expertise technically isn't required. You just need to be able to deal with the drain on the 1, because if you're running around with like 8 drain a second, that's a pretty heavy drain. And equilibrium is personal taste, but this is to help deal with the drain on the 1, and for the huge amount of energy pickups that you get from running the synth set. So it's just energy management. These 3 are energy management, stretches to taste. If you don't want the range so you keep your charges longer, you are free to take this off. If you see, it only lowers the radius. It does not affect the number of charges that you have. So the top row, and it's part of the reason why I modded like this, bottom row is essentially required for Baruuk to work. If you do not have transient fortitude, a regular intensify is going to be just as good. The only downside is that you're not going to be able to cast your 2 as fast. And you're going to be 2 charges less, which isn't too bad, considering transient fortitude is only 25 extra ability strength, and the negative of ability duration. It's not that big of a deal. So, and it only knocks off a second off the duration on lull. So, not a big deal. All right. Desert wind time. I'm not going to lie, you're going to need some forma for this thing to pop off. So let's start with the Nubra build. Pressure point, crit damage, any attack speed mod. If I can spell correctly. In some way, shape, or form, for a basic Baruuk build, just mod for corrosive. If you are looking for a generic build and you just need to be able to pick it up and go, corrosive is the correct answer. Now, just to iterate what is exactly happening, because we are using an augment. If you look, and hold on, I'll back out so we can see regular numbers. If you look at the damage on this weapon, it is very high. 1397 and only pressure point. That is because the strength on the frame is buffing the base damage of this. 635. 635. So the damage on exalted weapons scales with power strength and pressure point. So it helps a ton. And there's part of the reason why we're running so much power strength is to get this number buffed a little bit. So we're going to scale it again with pressure point. So we're at 1397. We want crit chance, status chance is 100% taken care of for us by the reactive storm augment. So instead of doing the 60/60s like I had on there, we're just going to go flat damage to further scale our damage. Because if you notice, we went from, I think the base is like 350. What is the base on this? 250. So we went from 250 to 635, which scales it. Pressure point increases it even more to like 1300 something. And then our modded raw damage is now at 4,959. So they all stack on top of each other. This is what our crits are based off of. This is where the critical damage increases from, this number. So having all of them stack up definitely helps. And it's part of the reason why you go a build like this. So what else do we need? For the new, and for corrosive, literally just equip whatever you can. If you don't have Prime Fever Strike, this is fine. You're just going to be dealing a little bit less damage. But you want these mods. And this is for a bare bones basic Baruuk build. And we'll go into more advanced stuff after this. I know the video's getting pretty long. So we need crit chance now. gets us to 100 with true steel, regular true steel. It gets us to 110% status chance. Not bad. Okay, so there's two other ways to scale this, and I highly recommend. And this is part of the reason why I run the build that I do. The range on this is garbage. Okay, it's horrible. There's a reason for it that I'll discuss in a bit, but I actually do run range on this. Because the like building up combo and doing the gladiator set is significantly easier to stack when you have range instead of having a 1.2 meter range. It's a utility mod essentially, but if you have something like this, I think the easier spot, if you have spring-loaded blade, I'm not assuming you do, but for whatever reason, if you have this, it's a lot easier to get nowadays than it used to be. But if you have this, slot it in. It's going to stack instantly, and it's just a nice touch. Okay? But I'm not assuming you have that. I run reach. There's going to be some people that are a little mad about that. The next build that I have after this is going to explain why. But we're running out of multipliers. Since we don't have to worry about status chance, we're raw damage only. You can either go faction, right? You can go faction, like this, to get your damage increase. Or you can go more attack speed. So it is up to you. If you're running a build like this, I would suggest doing Quickening Berserker. Wherever the hell it is. There we go. You will do decent damage, and it will get your attack speed high enough that even without the arcane, it will be respectable. And the reason why we're set up this way is purely because we're out of options. Okay? And if you want even more damage, and you're willing to deal with the consequences of it, you can take reach off and throw faction there. Okay? So this is a basic build. It's raw corrosive. You got decent crit chance, decent crit damage, and you've got faction. So let's talk about the issue with reactive storm. And it's going to explain, and I'm going to explain why we're doing a dot build. Reactive storm, and let's go back to the mod. Serene storm augment. That's his 4. Desert wind is granted plus 250% status chance and changes its damage type to match enemy weaknesses. Okay. The damage that is being changed is the impact. Okay. Just this 630. I tested it earlier, and it completely destroys your damage if you mod primed heavy trauma. Because as soon as the 630 impact changes, impact doesn't exist on this weapon anymore, and this mod becomes useless. So there's no point. So this status is going to change. It's going to jump around to each enemy's most beneficial damage increase to you. If it's an enemy with alloy armor, you will do radiation damage, and this 630 impact damage will change on the fly into radiation weighting. So you'll get the 630 damage, but it will be 630 radiation damage. This is part of the reason why you go corrosive, is if you're going against Grenier, the 2 plus 75 weaknesses that a Grenier has is corrosive for trash mobs and radiation for elite units. Okay? So against Grenier, you would go corrosive radiation. That's the logic behind it. Against Corpus, you would go pure toxin, and you would go back to a status build, because toxin bypasses shields, but this impact will then change to magnetic. So you will then have a magnetic toxin weapon. And it's going to do this on the fly in the mission. Okay. And against infested, you would do like viral, and you would just let the status change from like corrosive, gas, and viral, and it would jump between those three. And I think occasionally you proc slash. I forget which enemy it is, but there's a enemy there that you would proc slash on. Because those are the statuses that the enemies are weakest to. Okay, so that's how you would take advantage of it. Pure toxin against corpus, corrosive against Grenier, and viral against infested is how you would mod. Now, whether you want to do a faction mod or not, that's up to you. So let's actually look at the builds. And this time we're going to up the amount of mods that you would have to have, and we're going to start going for primed mods. Okay, so the first one is going to be prime pressure point. Real nice damage increase. And let's do the corrosive setup. And we are going to do double crit. And we're going to take advantage of Gladiator Might. The stack, because with this, Gladiator Might, obviously you can see the other Gladiator mods. I'll talk about the stat stick also. We are gaining the benefit of the Gladiator set, and the Gladiator set scales harder and harder the higher the crit chance is. The base crit chance. Well, the base crit chance for this weapon is a whopping 50%. So there's a lot for Gladiator Might to scale off of. Matter of fact, even with 3 Gladiator Might mods, we're going to be able to hit reds, which is good enough for me. So we're getting reds for almost free. We have Organ Shatter, so we've got a nice 5.5 crit multiplier. Now we need attack speed. And there's basically 2 combinations that I use. Okay. It's either Berserker Fury and Quickening for more attack speed. But if I'm changing up the stat stick, I might put Vice. It's a little less attack speed. I like the 1.4. And because we're going to be building combo, this is just sort of food for thought. So we have Fever Strike, Shocking Touch, and the final one, because I know it was requested. This is going to give you tier 2 with, I think, 155. 30% is what? 330, so that's 150. It's going to be 315% crit chance with Sacrificial Steel. Sorry. 325. Hold on. 50% plus 330% plus... Oh, 325. Okay. It's going to be 325% crit chance. That's going to give us some juicy reds. And this would be like a bare bones build. Now, obviously, some preferences. Let's just get them out of the way. If you feel that Berserker Fury and Arcane Strike is worth its weight in gold, and you're fine with it, Quickening is the flex slot. Put a faction mod here, you'll do significantly more damage. Okay. It knocks you down to 1.0 attack speed. Strike's going to help you out, get your first kill. And Berserker Fury will then scale up to 1.75 or 1.7, right? Which is decent. So it would be 1.7 and then 60% on top of that. Hold on. So it's 60 plus... plus 60% plus 70%. So it's going to be 2.5 to 3, depending on how fast you click. So 2.5 is a solid attack speed on its own. We should be doing a little better than that. So it's personal preference at this point. This gives you a well-rounded build. You deal with corrosive. So the option when we're going up against Grenier, this impact is going to be toggling between corrosive and radiation. So we're going to have a very good chance of hitting corrosive under the worst of circumstances against alloyed armor units. And it's still going to be like, what, 2/3 weighting? 5, 9, 7, 3, 1. 4, 2, 9, 1 is the corrosive weighting divided by the total modded damage. So under the worst of circumstance, we're going to have a 71%, 72% chance of applying corrosive. But when we hit the enemy that has alloy armor, we would have a 72% chance of applying corrosive, but we will then gain the damage increase bonus of radiation. So our damage will go up still. And again, when we're hitting trash mobs, we're just going to blow them out of the water because it's going to be 100% their weakness. So let's take a look at what this build actually does. Got some exos. Alright, 8,000, 16,000, seeing 12,000, 16,000, 32s, 47s with multiple applications. But that's wave damage. 61k, got a 70, 53. It's decent. Now we are going to scale our 4 combo. We're going to increase our damage by increasing our combo. And we are going to do that by meleeing enemies, obviously. And the only thing we really have of any consequence on our stat stick is the Glad set. So the easiest way to do is to walk up, get within melee range, and you're going to run around, and the way that I like to do it is by doing, like, slide attacks. It's really easy to build combo, and this is why we run Dexterity and Naramon. But you can see we're starting to build combo. Let's get some more enemies in. Alright, I think 4x is good enough. Alright, so now let's check our damage. Now we started at 15. Now we're at 22. Now we're seeing 115 reds. 119 red. 56, 89. 66. 137 red. Obviously much better numbers. So that's going to take you all the way up into reds. So this would be a solid steel path Baruuk build. It would get the job done. You'd get your juicy reds. You'd be way up, and you'd get reds early, which is good, because you're going to go from yellows with a chance of oranges all the way up into reds pretty dang quick. So this would be a decent bare bones build where you have some forma to throw at it and you got an umbral forma. This would definitely be the build. Now the issue is, so that if you're looking for a basic build with a build explanation, this would kind of be it. And this would be kind of the end of the conversation, except for the stat stick, which is this. All of these mods actually do something. Killing Blow and Amalgam Organ Shatter. The crit damage increase does not matter, but the wind-up carries over. Right? So we can check this pretty easily. because I do enjoy the occasional heavy attack on Baruuk, especially with that base damage. The windup is 0.3. Let's get rid of these mods. And you see now it's 0.5 with the mods unequipped. It's not a big bonus, but considering you really just don't have a lot to put here, and I had V polarities on the build anyway, you can run this. The other one is the Gladiator set. For these mods themselves do not buff the exalted. The set bonus buffs. Saxon Thorax is part of a set also. Again, the impact and status chance doesn't do anything. It's the set bonus. Baruuk has a ton of lifts. And sometimes this procs, sometimes it doesn't. But because there's so little that you can add on to this build for Baruuk, he doesn't have a really solid stat stick build. I'll take a little RNG. It's free damage. It's a 20% enemy max health in an 8-meter radius. That is not anything to sneeze at. True Punishment, 100% additional combo count chance. Pretty solid. And we're running a ton of combo duration. Part of the reason why we have the Gladiator Rush maxed. And Enduring Strike, I'm having trouble getting this to proc, but there have been times I've done a single slide attack and I've gotten to a 12x combo instantly on a single slide attack. So these two might be flex slots. I like True Punishment, but Enduring Strike, I'm actually having trouble getting it to apply consistently, but it does seem like it applies sometimes. So, weak mod, if you don't want it, don't equip it. But the rest of these apply. So, food for thought. So, let's talk about alternatives. So, we got our basic Baruuk build, which is the one we actually have over here, right? And now let's speed up how we talk about this, because this video is already an hour long. The meme build, and it's not really a meme, it does hella damage, is actually this one. Instead of, we swapped out Transient Fortitude, I needed the slot. Stretch got removed. And if you notice, we have 204% strength. So we lost some charge stacks. The benefit is we're now a dot build, and we're going to mod for heat. Right? This is the new build. We save a mod slot by modding for heat only. And the only thing that changes when you go between Corpus and Grenier is literally the faction mod. And because we have the free mod slot, we can now re-equip range on here, which is a nice quality of life. Because the 1.2 meter range, it's fine for what Baruuk needs, because you're mostly dealing damage with the 3. But the difference between stacking combo without Prime Reach and with it is very noticeable. So it's a very similar build. We went Berserker Fury Quickening because we want the combo count chance. We want that combo maxed as often as possible, especially if we feel like we're going to be throwing heavy attacks around. We have lost some modded damage. Don't worry, we're going to get it back. Obviously can't do anything with the stance. So Pressure Point's the same, Organ Shatter's the same, Gladiator Might's the same, Berserker Fury's the same. We have a 90 Elemental. We still have a faction mod, that's the same. So Berserker Fury, and we have Quickening on. We want as much attack speed as possible with this build, and this is part of the reason why I went with Arcane Strike. Because the attacks are fast enough, you can readily stack 2 to 3 statuses on an enemy. And more importantly, it gives me more chance to proc heat. If I do a 60-60 mod for heat, it will bump me up in priority. But because it's so close to 50%, it actually justifies the 91% status. Because I'm attacking so fast. So I sort of made up the difference in going below 100% status chance with getting more chances at proccing status chance, if you see the logic. What did we gain from all of this? Well, if you looked at the modding on Baruuk, we gained Arcane Vitality. Why is this a second build, right? The strength from the frame increases the base damage of the 4. Pressure point then multiplies off of that. The heat dot is based off of the strength of the base damage, which is increased by strength and pressure point, and then it gets doubled. So you have several tiers where they're working together of applying the heat dot. And the heat dot gets pretty damn nuts. So why do we have overextend on here, and why do we stop at 204% power strength? Because I didn't need 204, I needed 200. Because in order to amp the damage even more, because this is a 2022 Baruuk Prime build, and not something from a year ago, we have shards, and we got helminths. And the frame that came out, not the last one, but the one before, was Styanax. And there are now 100% defense strips in the game. So if I'm stripping Grineer, I'm always going to hit viral, which is enough to level cap with on its own. But I don't really need viral because I have a Panzer. I want the viral 75% damage bonus, but I don't need my 4 to be applying statuses because nothing's going to have armor. And I just want the damage bonus, but I wouldn't mind the occasional heat proc at the scaled damage. And it does nasty damage. So we're actually going to be significantly more spammy. We are going to be shield gating with our 2 through volume. But it's fine, everything's going to be dead. So there's a little bit of a sacrifice in this. Obviously, the bottom 4, Rolling Guard, was over here before. The bottom row is the same. Flow and Equilibrium is the same. Briefer Sprite, Prime Sure-Footed, even the Arcane's the same. So with changing 2 mods, we have gained a significant amount of range. So we can apply Theros Strike as wide as possible because that benefits heavily from range. We had to have enough power strength to beat 204, or to beat 200 to get our full strip, because we are shield gating with Briefer Spite. We don't get the benefit of Corrosive Projection, not that I would care with Baruuk's 4. And it still leaves us with, well, a bit of strength, right? So this is a series of compromises, and I even have a partially ranked overextend. It's at rank. It's the 4th rank. It is not maxed. To keep me over 200%, so I can guarantee the 100% defense reduction. So we're gonna go back to the Prime, or the mod. Sorry, the Exalted Melee, and see the mod setup. So, reason being, the reason why we went Molten Impact here is 1, to take advantage of the Vitality mod, the Arcane Vitality. But 2, the impact is going to be changing back and forth between statuses normally, right? Well, it's going to be going to viral, because that's the plus 75 on the Grineer's health pool. The next mod, or the next status on an unarmored Grineer that has a damage bonus on it, is heat. So the difference between having a pure viral Desert Wind and having a Desert Wind with heat on it is I lose initial alpha damage, for sure. But I don't lose as much as you would think. It's the difference between plus 75, which I'm going to be getting anyway, and plus 25% with heat. But because I'm running faction, when I do trigger the heat, it doubles its damage. So I gained some of it back, where before, when I was running raw damage and I didn't have dots, Prime Smite, the faction mod, was just kind of a filler spot because I didn't really have anything I cared about there. Like, it was the next best. Wait, is there ribbons for this? There's no ribbons for this. I'm sitting here looking at this for a second. There's ribbon dispo. Maybe I'll throw a ribbon on it, see what happens. But anyway, the faction mod was there because one, I had the Prime variant, and two, I was kind of out of multipliers. Okay. But now I've got a dot. And not only that, I have a dot that's been boosted several times. So let's see where we're at now. Obviously, we're going to do more damage. So before we were getting, I think it was like 15 on the initial hit. And then eventually with reds, we got up to like, I think it was like 100. Alright, so we're starting out at 32. With one tap, I had 163k heat proc. That was a 557k heat proc. That was a 154,000 heat proc. The initial hit on that guy was 269k, killed him. That one was 126,000. That's quite the damage amp, wouldn't you say? It's funny how everything's a trash mob when they don't have armor. So this is the build that I've settled on. Nothing has armor, and by the way, that is without 12x combo. Just thought I should point that out. And if you notice, I did not go on the build. I have an Umbral Forma here. I didn't fucking use it. It doesn't need it. It hits for millions now. I could, if I didn't want quickening, and I was fine with Arcane Strike and Berserker Fury. If I'm feeling a little spicy and I want the flexibility to go with a heavy attack build, I can 100% now put Sacrificial Steel here, because I have it formed. Because on Baruuk, I love swapping between them. So even though I'm not using it, I have Umbral formed this, but as you can see, I'm not using it. So the damage is way nicer with this. So it's a series of compromises. The core mods, the core 4 mods that we needed are still here. We still get Shieldgate, not with Theros Strike, but we're going to be recasting it and using recasting on the 3 to help keep our damage, keep our shield up. But even then, because Theros Strike is as cheap as it is, you can afford to cast it twice, and it'll still be cheaper than a Desolate Hands cast. And we can see exactly what we're going to get. So let's check this. So again, the number that we're looking for is 189. So close. We're at 183. If I could fit another auger mod on there. So here's actually my recommendation. If you decide to go this build, one thing you can consider is Coaction Drift. And it'll be enough to give you shield gaining on the Theros Strike on its own. I know I said Handspring earlier, but listen, we're an hour and 15 minutes into this video. Anybody who was looking for a quick build hadn't made it this far. Coaction Drift would be viable. You would have to worry about knockdowns, but you would get shield gate if you have overs. It's a lot harder. You resist stuff, especially like statuses and whatnot. And rolling guard, you're basically going to be 1 and 2 tapping, if not first dot killing almost everything. So, okay. Enough talking about this. Let's see some damage. And to stay in tune with what we said before in the last video, or maybe the one before, we are going to be going to Lua. So we're going to see how far this gets us. Alright, so Corrupted. Actually, let me check what it is. Hold on. I think it is Corpus. Corpus and Corrupted. Let me see what I got. I'm gonna go Corrupted if it's Corpus. Because I know it's at least hybrid. Obviously Steel Path. We need Lua. Okay, it's Orokin. That makes sense. So we are modded effectively. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. We've got our meme build. 204, Therastrike, Helminth Dawn. I'm going to show this build and its damage compared to like the other one, because a billion people are going to do that corrosive crap. But we're here for the damage, right? Pretty easy. Panzer. You know the deal with that. Solo. Steel Path. Conjunction Survival. I'm going to do not a full rotation, but I'm going to go until the Thrax and the thing, the Acolyte spawns in. Your enemies have groomed fears. Use all that you have learned. And I will try to give commentary and like show what I'm testing. So like because I know bitrate can be kind of a bitch. I'll give commentary on like the high numbers that I'm seeing, the low numbers, full strike or full strip damage on like a 12x, like how to build, like the logic behind what I'm doing. All right, we're charged up. We needed more than a full energy pad. One of the small perks of being Baruuk. Alright, cast 1. 3 up. We are going to wait for our 4. And the one downside of this, if you notice at the very beginning there, you're going to have to play really aggressive to be able to keep your restraint up. Because I am relying entirely on my 3. Alright, we're charged up. I'm gonna keep building combo. Alright, let's see what our actual damage is going to be. We've got 12x. Alright, so I'm seeing like 140k on shield units. That was like 240 on a corpus. About 180 on that guy. For some reason, that was gas. 1.8 mil on a slide attack. Everything from 14k to 30k. 317. 140. Another 19. Okay, so that's raw damage with no strip. But this is a dot strip build. 200k on that guy. 573k on that guy. 200s. Gonna go ahead and recast now that that guy's here. 200k. 100k, 72. And of course my gladiator set's glitched. Hold on, I need to melee something. Nope. This frame's so buggy. My gladiator set glitched a little bit. I'm not getting oranges. But either way, 240k. That was a heat proc. That's radiation. 18k heat, not too impressive. $156k. 416. Was a 13k and 156k on the same hit. Where'd he go? Okay, that guy was essentially two-shot. Oh, I think I got my gladiator set back. Nope. That was an acolyte. Okay, finally got a heat dot. It was a 301. That was a 248. All in the 100Ks. 300K. Alright, hold on. I'm gonna heavy attack and see if I can reset gladiator set, because I'm down a ton of damage. Okay, it's fixed. I'm getting oranges again. Okay, my damage is back. Give me a second. Okay, that one was 700k, 300, a 1.3 mil, 300, 200k, 1.3 mil, 600k, 700, 800k, 500k. Was it 200, 200, 117, 300, 200, 300, 200k. Like, the damage is very high. That was a 1.2. 900k red. Hey, got a 400k dot. Uh, 3.5 mil dot. I need something to not die. Listen, I swear to God, this is a dot build. 130k, 340k dot, 76k. I got a little 1200 gas proc over here doing damage. Alright, that was an acolyte, 3 banged. Okay, a 50k dot. The sentients really didn't get to adapt. Whoops, I was not paying attention to that. Oh god, my gladiator set's glitched the other way now. One of the problems with this setup, and I understand this is like a suffering from success sort of complaint, but because I'm not heavily reliant, and it's part of the reason. Okay, thank God it went away. I was getting reds at 2x combo because I went down. Because I am kind of reliant on spores. Not hyper reliant, but it is a large source of my energy production. I actually need to not kill the enemies so fast for now. Where later in the... Where later it will... Oh, I gotta reset my gladiator set. There we go. It'll be fine later. It's one of those dumb things that scale, but it's just because I'm popping everything. Obviously not ideal. Anyway, it's very buggy. Hopefully they... But the damage is there. It's just if you lose your combo because of an acolyte, it is very annoying. And once you get past the first... I don't know, the first rotation of your 3, restraint is super easy to keep up. Like I've been almost pegged at max the entire time. Anyway, that's 13 minutes in. Generally, to reset the gladiator set, just heavy attack. Just heavy attack when you're in your 4th, and auto once with the actual fists of Serene Storm, and it should fix. But anyway, besides that one point where I screwed up, oh, it's over here. Besides that one screw up of mine, the build's pretty stable. Obviously, there's damage there, but the 4 is super buggy. If you're willing to put up with it, you'll be enjoying millions and millions of damage. Like those are literally level cap numbers, like no other fix, right? So it is what it is. Some other notes. Some ways to fix this a bit. Is if somebody else is running Brief or Spite, you could probably get away with doing... Actually, if somebody else is running Brief or Spite, I wouldn't change anything. But it would, of note, allow you to shield gate purely with Theros Strike, which would vastly improve your level cap experience. Because if you got Brief or Spite plus the 2 Augur mods, if you noticed before when I showed it, we actually missed like a shield gate by like, I think it was like what, 6 or something like that, or 8. So somebody else running Brief or Spite would 100% fix the issue. And you wouldn't have to rely on 3 as much. But shield gating is what it is. Or you would have the option, if somebody else was running Brief or Spite, to maybe change out for something else, in which case, whatever aura you prefer. Do not go with Energy Siphon for the new bros that have made it this far for some reason. It's just not enough to matter. You need the energy from Equilibrium and from Energize to make this build viable, because it's not super spammy, but you gotta have your energy production on point. And it does become more effective the higher the enemy level is, because spores need multiple instances. Like, you need to be able to hit something with the spore from your Panzer needs to get on something, and then to increase the amount of energy that you get, you need to be able to hit something without killing it, so the spore transfers. But if your Panzer spores something, and then you wipe the group of enemies. There's nothing to transfer to. So it kind of hurt there at the beginning. But this kind of fixes it. So as the enemies get stronger, and you see a spored enemy, auto with your 4 once or twice to get the spore to spread, and then strip and then auto. So that way you get both of it. And with that, you should be able to easily keep up your 3, keep the disarm going. It provides you with a little bit of soft CC, like it's not like a Magus lockdown or something. But the disarm and the explosion makes a little bit of a stun. It's not really anything you can abuse too much. With like a Banshee Silence or something. But with this, the full strip, the bonus damage, it is incredibly potent. And you survive basically on your 4 damage, as all good Baruuk players should. It's like, oh, I have 90% damage reduction. I don't need it. Okay, so final thing, and I'm actually going to go back to the simulacrum for it.
The multitude of creatures you have immortalized would cry out in thanks.
And I probably should have put this earlier, because this is very late into the video, and this is more of a new bro thing. One of the other reasons... That is not what I wanted. Whatever. We'll go to the ugly one. Oh god, my eyes. Look at it. What am I, a peasant? Okay, so the Baruuk stance. Right? We'll let these guys do their thing. Plink, plink, plink. Right? It's kind of sad the explosion does not spread spores. Okay, good enough. Right? Okay, so with the 4, everybody's familiar with the standing auto. If you look at the triangles, they're leaving my fist. I am going to do the block combo, but standing... Hold on. Okay. It's very quick, but the triangles are now heading toward my hand. Okay? 1, the standing auto is a push. The block auto is a pull. Right? Okay, or they're just dead. Please don't die. Okay, see how they yank toward me? And that's sort of a pull. The forward block combo... Okay, you're just dead too. The forward block combo is a lift. And you can use this a little bit to help with CC and as 4. But more importantly, the reason why I bring that up specifically, is it justifies adding the reach mod more. Because if you're regularly able to interact with enemies with your fists, and you're able to naturally build combo a little bit easier, like you saw me when I was doing the actual mission, I was spinning using the slide attack for the multi-hit to build it really fast. Well, truth be told, the only reason I was doing that is because of how the enemies line up, and it's easy to just run through them. But like if you're doing like a Tavuni, which is the showcase area I would do for Steel Path, the pull works just as good, and it actually makes you surprisingly safe because of tunnels. It just keeps everything CC'd. You do enough damage, you're going to blow through over guard anyway, because the raw damage is so high. And even with just the Glad Might, or the Glad set, with the 3 set bonus for 30% crit chance per combo, I'm still hitting oranges and reds. Which means getting to reds isn't that big of a deal. It's kind of a meme at this point. It would be better to keep the faction mod on and not equip this. So the only real choice that you have in terms of this setup, if you want to do something like this, is to get rid of quickening, run sacrificial steel for even more reds. Going up one tier of crit is not worth it. But because of how high this weapon's crit chance is, you would be going up into guaranteed reds and into a decent chance of getting a tier 2 red. So quickening in terms of total DPS is totally a flex slot. So where I said before, oh, I'm a fan of like heavy attacks, this is technically a better build by a little bit. Because I can use reach now to pull enemies into me. And I can gain combo that way, which would also mean that reach is now the flex slot. So I could potentially do this, pull enemies into me with my block auto stance and gain combo that way, once to maintain my combo. Because I'm running so much combo duration, I only need to tap something every 20 seconds. And I can get away with that with slide attacks. Then once I get that, I really don't care about range. I want to kill with the waves. So these would be options. Reach, if you don't want to run sacrificial steel, this goes here, reach goes here. You barely make it under with one capacity. So these would be your options. It's completely to taste, but this is how you would scale this build even more, because technically reach is a flex slot. It doesn't affect your waves. You could do this provided you're willing to add the skill, or the condition, not the skill, but the condition of having to actually hit something with essentially a pencil. It's a 1.2 meter range. Like, you could stand next to something and sometimes not hit it. So if you're willing to deal with it, this is better than having reach on. So for easy use, I like doing reach. But to be honest, I like hitting for 9 million. Like, with the waves, I like seeing millions and millions and millions of damage. So the people building and doing like 50, 60k, I don't give a shit about. I'm hitting 8 figures with this build. And it's the taste, it's whatever you guys want, but this is how you would adjust it. So this is actually the final build for full scaling. Sacrificial steel to quickening. Like this is creature comfort because I don't necessarily need sacrificial steel to hit reds. But if I'm willing to play around it a little bit, reach goes away, quickening goes here, and sacrificial steel goes here. And I increase, I think I almost double my damage. 1 plus 40%. I need to do math plus. Oh, and that's not right. It's 96%. Okay, it's a 96% increase. I was hitting for 1.3, 1.4, and I even, like, the heat dot was all over the place, because it depends on where you hit the body and whether I've stripped before I've hit them. But the heat dot got as high as 3.6 million, and on an unstripped enemy, it was like 50, 60k. Okay, still an okay heat dot, especially if you can regularly proc it, and that's one instance a hit, right? One status proc. But if you strip and then hit them, that 3.6 goes to 7. And the lower heat procs on a stripped enemy, where it was like 80k, go to 160k, and the entire thing becomes level cap damage. So this is the thinking behind this. I hope at least at a minimum, God forbid you've actually made it this far, it's an hour and 40-minute video. This has given you some damn good ideas. If you can deal mentally with the 20-second combo, and you know just through playstyle to hit something regularly, or you're willing to just incorporate slide attacks into your your skill rotation. Naramon is a flex slot also. Matarai does more. Physical damage and operator damage increased by 30% just by equipping this. And for extra juicy meme damage, Void Strike. And your damage goes up again. So this, if you wanna try to go for like damage cap, you would use this. And you would just make sure to naturally through your play style keep your combo up, because you've only got it's a 20-second combo duration. So it's chunky to begin with. But it would require you making sure to keep it, because otherwise you'll lose it entirely. So if you're willing to accept that condition also, and the small range, so you can buff the waves and get like 20 seconds of really, really absurdly high damage, this would then scale the build even further. And it would get you to regularly hitting eight digits, which is a damn good time. But anyway, there you go. I hope this helps. Oh, also, hold on. Some meme alternatives. Because we all love stupid builds. This one, right? Yep. So this is a Baruuk build. It's a range dump stat. And Baruuk with this build has like 46 million effective HP, and I think that's low. Hold on. So we got calculator. Okay, so 555. We've got adaptation. Hold on, I did that wrong. So 555 health. Divided by adaptation. And the 3 brings us to 55,500. We've got null star. So then we'll divide again by 0.25 because it's 75% because of the strength. Brings us to 220,000. The next big bonus is armor, which is, let's see, health conversion. 1350. 900. 22. Was that 1475? 1425. Let's see what that actually works out to. Actually, you know what? There's got to be a calculator. Give me a second. Warframe. Oh, armor calculator. It actually completes. Oh, such a nice thing. Okay. Okay, so health. 555. Armor. 2475. Damage reduction is easily 99. Which brings us to 4.6 million. And we haven't added in armor yet. Or null star. So we'll enter this number in. We'll try to figure it out because the it doesn't let us go any further. So 4634250. Okay. So then we'll divide it again by null star, which is 75%. And then we have the Baruuk passive, which is another 50%. And then we got rid of that. I could have left that on. So restraint's going to stack like normal, so it's going to be permanently at 50%. And then we have the dodge chance from the 1, which is however you want to calculate it. So this build can literally just face tank. The only rule is this is for people that really, really like their weapons platform. This is a cozy build. Reducing everything. Hold on, I want to do the other one because they're grouped. Relay. So it's a couple million effective health with very little effort. I don't want to. Actually, you know what? Maybe I could have done that. take off the first ability and keep the fourth, but then just run around with the primary for the additional 40%, right? Options. Okay. So we're gonna stand here like a moron. Right? Actually, I'm gonna turn the one off. Right? So... this is a thing. My damage reduction is so high, I'm not even taking damage. It's actually reducing their damage to 0. Up, I took 1 damage. Up, I took 2 damage. Something hit me for like a headshot. I took 1 damage. Another 1. Up, Grace is active now. Okay. I took 1. Yeah, so... It is what it is. For your consideration, gentlemen. Lads and scholars, all of you. The damage reduction on that is absolutely absurd. And technically, now that I think about it, you know what I should have done? Null Star was the right call. I should have put it on the 1. Because if I have the 4 active, that's another 40 per... But no, I have to be in the stance. No, never mind. I thought correctly. This is right. So it's a very, very, very tanky Baruuk build. And this leads me into another smaller thing. Okay, so those exos, right? They use a Carrick Wraith. And here's the important part. The Carrick Wraith... Hold on, it's not 37. I think it's 31 damage. Okay. There is a very simple calculation. This is very, very incredibly shorthand. You can just multiply the base damage of the gun. And this is literally the weapon damage. 31. When you look at the weapon, it says 31 damage. It's like... It's like 42% impact or something like that. But the quick way to figure out how much a level cap enemy does is to multiply it by 23,750. It is not exact. The correct number is like 23,674, depending on how you're rounding. But this is an easy number to remember. 23,750. Nice and round. This is essentially what a level cap enemy is hitting you with. But the issue is that my effective health, this is effective health to effective health. 736,250 damage is what I'm going to be getting hit effective health to effective health. Except Baruuk's effective health is 31 million. So this build can technically level cap tank. Like straight up face tank. I'm going to have Grace procced. Because I'm going to die in like 20 hits or whatever that works out to. But the base solid damage reduction on this, because there's so much crap stacked on top of each other, this build can technically level cap. At least prevent the one shot. So I don't know. I might do a cascade with this and report back with the results. And obviously that requires adaptation to be stacked, right? But you should be getting shot in the face the entire time. But anyway, gentlemen, I hope this was helpful. This build is a thing. So we'll see how this goes. I could also put Blind Rage here, right? I mean, I'm not really casting that much. I'm going to tweak this. Because I don't really need efficiency. And this would give me more charges, so I'd be safer, right? Anyways. I'm going to probably be tweaking this for a while. I hope this was helpful. This was an incredibly long video. God help you if you made it this far. But I tried to explain the entire thought process instead of a quick 10-minute video, but I wanted to explain the entire thought process behind the build, plus something interesting, plus maybe a higher tier build. For those of you that were willing to accept some conditions for a massive upside, modifying your playstyle a little bit, this build does ridiculous damage. And it's not that hard to deal with. Once you get the first, you can survive on Desolate Hands with slide attacks. You can proc a couple of them. It will easily keep Desolate Hands, it'll easily keep your restraint meter stacked, or your restraint meter drained. How would that work? It would easily keep Baruuk's restraint as low as possible, so he's willing to kick as much ass as possible, even without the 2. Because let's be honest, 2 is an excellent ability, but Eximus units exist, and Overguard exists, and there's shit you can't put to sleep, and I don't, because I can get the meter filled with 3, the utility of the 2 kind of got hit. So it's sad to say that's the helmet spot right now, unless something changes. Even though it's kind of a meme, 315% or 315-degree angle, because I'm basically heading straight forward, provides an incredible amount of dodge chance if I want to reposition. So this is actually okay. And the spam ability of 2, the Theros Strike combined with Desolate Hands, you can keep going for a while. So anyway, I hope this helped, guys. I gave you some options. I gave you the logic for the new people about building the frame to begin with. These are not Umbral builds. You do not need Umbras on Baruuk. If you are health tanking with Baruuk, you will be invincible for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden you will die in a fire. Okay, because that's how levels, or because that's how weapon scaling works. So it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, take it easy. This video is long enough. Good God, take it easy.